Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army. Army officers say the missile found...
From the studios of Blackwater Media in the city of Atlanta, it's time for the Shadowland radio show. I'm your host, Dr. William Lester, and I'd like to welcome you to the program. I haven't done a Shadowland radio show in quite some time, so it's very exciting to be doing this show once again. Now, before I get into the topic, I want to just give a little quick update on what's going on with Blackwater Media. Of course, we're in the dog days of August. We're counting down to the end of August, and fall is coming. And so, fall means harvest, fall means Halloween, and, naturally, and as usual, we will be moving into conversations along those lines in conjunction with the changing seasons. Coming up, as always, are a great new set of stories, particularly Dogman stories that are coming up. There's one called The Pack. There's another story called Don't Open the Door, and another Dogman story which is very scary, and it's called The Unusual Suspect. So look out for those in the next week or so. Also, if you are interested in getting a Blackwater Media Swamp Hunters Society membership, it's very easy to do. It gives you access to all of the premium material. And as an example of the 3 Dogman stories that I just referenced, 2 of those will be premium stories. I think the Wolf Pack will be a free story, but the other 2 will be premium stories, and you'll have to have a membership to be able to listen to those in their entirety. As always with the premium stories, I provide a free preview on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and of course the Blackwater Media site, blackwatermedia.net. But if you want to enjoy those stories in their entirety, you will have to get a Blackwater Media Swamp Hunter Society membership. Just go to the website and click on Become a Member and put in your information, sign up, and there you go, $4.99 a month. You have all access pass to the premium material. And of course, when you become a member, like I've said in the past, you also have access to that backlog of premium content. So it's just a remarkable thing for very little. Just $4.99, just about the cost. I don't know, because I haven't been there in a while, but just about the cost of one of those overpriced, lattes or coffees at your favorite coffee house. Okay. So what I want to share with you today is something that is kind of near and dear to my heart. It's something that in a lot of ways, was very formative for me in my interest in, things like cryptozoology, paranormal, and what have you. And what I want to talk about are paranormal, UFO, and cryptozoology documentaries that were made during the 1970s. And you must remember, these were made long before the saturation of paranormal topics into popular culture. Today, you can get paranormal all day, every day, just about. Some of these were made for theatrical release, and some were made for TV. But in either case, all through the 70s and even into the early 90s, if my memory is correct, they were being shown on local UHF stations across the country. Now, first of all, I'll use a lot of terms that may be specific. A lot of this is going to be generational. You may be of an age where you've lived your whole life with cable or satellite TV. You might not know the term UHF. And hell, I don't even know what it stands for, but I know that UHF stations were usually, say from channel 13 up. Okay. But these documentaries were usually shown on Saturday afternoons and also during holidays, because more people are at home and, from work and school. And also, like, as a night owl, I can tell you that they were also shown on those same UHF stations like at 11 p.m. or later, because I can just remember being up late watching these. Now, there's probably a lot of you who are very familiar with, the paranormal shows and documentaries from the last 10 or 15 years. Well, the aesthetics of these older productions will seem a little strange to you. And I don't mean strange in a bizarre way, but more like strange in the style of presentation that you might not be used to. And this is for a few reasons. Number one, the more recent productions are the beneficiary of much, much larger budgets. And to be honest, a lot of the topics are no longer considered as fringe by the public or the entertainment industry. Now, in the older productions, you're not going to see any of those flashbang CGI effects. But one thing you will notice in the older programs is a larger percentage of mainstream scientists from various disciplines. Now, remember, these programs that we're talking about were produced at a time before the internet. And as I've said many times, the internet has kind of created a deluge of what I call self-styled experts. And we're at a point now where armchair experts actually believe they're kind of in a position to postulate sensible rebuttals to the type of scientists that you see in older documentaries. Now, today, most physicists, biologists, astronomers, and others aren't really going to commit much time and energy to participate in a production in which they have to ostensibly argue with people who think that any concept that they come up with constitutes a viable scientific theory. They're just not going to do it. Also, most of today's productions are in many ways personality driven, and there's a lot of emphasis on the host or the cast and what they specifically present on camera as an individual or as a group. In earlier programs, you'll typically have an off-camera narrator or an on-camera host. This individual was almost always a generally respected man, known either from film, radio, TV, or journalism. That was like the template. For example, Rod Serling, Lawrence Dobkin, Leonard Nimoy, Peter Graves. And again, generationally, I know if you're 40 or older, you recognize those names. Now, in each of those cases, these guys are acting as like agents of information instead of the stars of the production. And they really do come across as being cogent, serious, and mature. Another thing, in some of these older productions, and we're talking about a time period, let's just say between 40 and 50 years ago, you'll typically see these colorful, sometimes semi-psychedelic animated intros and transitions, along with what was considered at the time to be very futuristic music. Okay, now, let me share with you some of what I consider to be the more notable titles. And at the end of each one, I'll give what I call Dr. Lester's Batarang rating, which of course on a scale of 1 to 5. And I am not suggesting in any way that these are the only ones or the best ones. because I know that's subjective. And anytime you give a list of anything, people want to rush in and say, what about this? What about that? What about this? You forgot about that. No. I can't do it all in one show. And I'll probably cover some other titles in a future Shadowland radio show. So let's get started. The first title is called Journeys from Beyond Earth. And this comes to us from 1975. And it's hosted / narrated by actor, writer, director Lawrence Dobkin. Now, if there are any hardcore sci-fi fans, you might have a notion of who he was, because he had quite an impressive resume, including radio, film, and TV as far back as like 1949. Now, as a writer, he created the main character for the Life and Times of Grizzly Adams, which was an incredibly popular TV series back in the 70s. He also had a couple of Star Trek appearances, one in the original series, and I believe one as a Klingon in Star Trek The Next Generation. Anyhow, in this documentary, Journeys from Beyond Earth, they cover a lot of subjects: UFOs, ghosts, witchcraft, Atlantis, and the Bermuda Triangle. And it really is a typical unexplained mysteries documentary from this time period. And in this context, I would say check it out. In my view, you will enjoy it. I'm going to go ahead and give it an overall rating of 3.5 batarangs. All right. Next up, let me take you back to 1973 and a documentary called In Search of Ancient Aliens. Now, there is some confusion about this. In fact, I got caught up in the confusion. This is an edited version of the original documentary, the German documentary for Chariots of the Gods. Of course, the famous work by Erich von Däniken. This is an early documentary presentation of the ancient astronaut theory, which of course has taken on great notability with the Ancient Aliens series running today. However, this particular documentary is narrated by Rod Serling, which right there makes it a must-see. Now, of course, Rod Serling's not just legendary for being the creator of the Twilight Zone, but for his incredible writing. He also did the screenplay adaptation of Planet of the Apes, of the 1968 film. And more than that, for a program like this, for a film like this, you know, he's got this patently perfect sense of the bizarre and the mysterious. Overall rating, 4 batarangs. Check it out. Now, on this next one, I want to tell you about this. I think that this one presents some of the wildest, craziest shit I've ever seen or heard. It's called Overlords of the UFO from 1976. And right there, they're kind of telling you with a title like that, they're almost telling you that, hey, get ready for some stuff that is over the top and insane. Now, I particularly remember seeing this one as a kid, and it always seemed to be late at night. And this one, for me, has always been the one with the most entertainment value in several ways. First, of all the ones I've seen, this one by far has the most psychedelic, far out animation and music of them all. So if you watch this one with the lights down, it's an even crazier magic carpet ride type experience. Also, there are some very good, solid sighting and encounter cases represented, like the Betty and Barney Hill case and the Pascagoula, Mississippi case. And there's some very good commercial airline and military, like Air Force cases referenced as well. And you get solid commentary from the late Stanton Friedman, so that's always good. Now, of course, along with that, there's some wild, outlandish speculation with practically no basis whatsoever, along with a few outlandish illustrations, ridiculous photos, and silly film footage. And it's all kind of cobbled together by a writer named W. Gordon Allen, who kind of takes the role as the host narrator in the guise as I'm a hardcore newsman. And this guy Allen does have a bit of a track record of kookiness, so you can expect a wild ride. So this one definitely I have to put in the must-watch category because it's just so damn nutty. And we're going to give it an overall rating of 3 batarangs. Next is The Mysterious Monsters from 1976. And this one I feel is not only the best of these types of documentaries of that period, but is arguably the best cryptozoology documentary I've ever seen. Now, the host / narrator is Peter Graves, who for anyone over the age of 40 is a very recognizable film and TV actor. Of course, also the brother of actor James Arness. But Peter Graves was famous, of course, in the 60s for Mission Impossible. He was famous a little bit later on for his comedic presentations in the Airplane movies. But even earlier, I think in the 70s, he was in a number of like fantasy / horror films. I believe there was one called Scream of the Werewolf that he was in. But again, an iconic figure for people of specific generations. The good thing is here throughout this film, Graves projects an intense sense of inquiry. He's very serious and he has a lot of believability. I saw this one in the theaters with my dad when it first came out, and it's been a favorite of mine ever since. And this one too, I think, was especially formative in my interest in many of these areas. I think that the last time I saw this one on TV was around like 1997 or 98. And if I remember correctly, it was like early in the afternoon during the summer on WTBS, which, in Atlanta, back then it was Channel 17. And in those days, Channel 17 was like the center of Ted Turner's broadcast empire. Subject-wise, the documentary goes into a fairly detailed look at the Loch Ness Monster and the Yeti of the Himalayas. But the majority of the film focuses on Bigfoot in North America. There's also like some intense Bigfoot encounters that are reenacted in the film, including an encounter that led to the witness taking and passing a polygraph test. Now, the interesting thing about this polygraph test sequence is that it's done in real time on camera, of course, unbeknownst to the subjects, which adds greatly to the credibility of the encounter. So from a qualitative perspective, as a paranormal cryptozoology documentary of that era, I give it an overall rating of 5 batarangs. That's right, the full 5. Now, the final film that we will be looking at is the 1977 production of UFOs Are Here. Now, this is an Australian-made film, and it features Steven Spielberg, Stanton Friedman, Dr. Alan Hynek, Jacques Vallée, Kenneth Arnold, Betty Hill, and Ray Palmer, of course, who published that very bizarre shaver mystery thing. Now, this program is billed as a rare TV documentary and also credited as giving birth to the so-called cosmic conspiracy. And it also has clips of Jaws and Star Wars: A New Hope. And I think it's just kind of a tie-in because Spielberg does a lot of commentary, and he of course links a lot of that to the production of Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which I think also came out in 1977, right? Yep. But there's also some solid commentary from Stanton Friedman and Alan Hynek, both of which, of course, were highly respected scientists. So it's got some scientific validity to it. It's got some gravitas. I also think that being able to hear from Kenneth Arnold firsthand is also interesting, because anytime you read books about UFOs, they mention the Kenneth Arnold sighting in 1947, but you don't really get to see him on camera talking about the encounter that much, but you have that here. Also, Jacques Vallée's input is a solid element to the film. The segment with Stan Deyo, I think, goes way too long, in my opinion, and it just seems to sink down into a kind of circular conspiratorial quagmire that's really hard to climb out of. Now, like Overlords of the UFO, this film makes frequent use of those groovy animation swirls with quirky flying saucer sound effects, but it seems like it's being done in a much clunkier, clumsier way. So while I suggest you do see this, I have to give it an overall rating of 2.5 batarangs. So there you go. Those are some great paranormal, UFO, cryptozoology, unexplained mystery documentaries from the 1970s. I recommend you see them all. And in terms of finding them, check YouTube first. I know for a fact that Journeys from Beyond Earth is currently available there. Really, especially, and if you've got a smart TV, you go into your YouTube app and pull it up, and it's just like watching it on television. Otherwise, I think all of these titles can be tracked down on DVD, with a little Google search. I personally prefer having a DVD format because you just never know now when these titles are going to just disappear. And so, in other words, I think they're all out there. They're all accessible. Check them out. Add them to your library. We will cover other titles that I did not get to here, because this, of course, is just the tip of the iceberg, so to speak. But I wanted to share this with you. I hope you enjoyed it. If there are any titles that you know about along the same vein, drop me a note, shoot me a message at Dr. Lester at blackwatermedia.net, and I'll see if I can track it down and we can talk about it. But we will do this. I want to do a summary and a review of the original Legend of Boggy Creek, because that one is absolutely part of the genre that we're talking about. Also, I want to include in this examination the original series In Search Of, featuring Leonard Nimoy. I'm in the middle of watching that series. I picked it up on DVD. I remember it as a kid. I had no idea how many damn episodes there are. But again, it's not a movie, but it is an ongoing series that ran for several years, and it absolutely falls into the parameters of what we're doing here. And so we will get into that. I don't know. There's no way that I'm going to just go episode by episode, but I'll just do kind of like a thumbnail and give you the rating that I have calculated for it. So that concludes another edition of the Shadowland Radio Show. Thank you so much for joining me. Be sure to look out this weekend. This is, let's see, it'll be the weekend of August 28th. Friday is August 28th. Look out for some great new programming Go to blackwatermedia.net, get your Swamp Hunter Society membership, and also check out the Blackwater Media Facebook page and the YouTube channel. So, I'm Dr. William Lester, and I will see you all again on the flip side.